When we picture the world's great reptilian domains, our minds often drift to the sun-scorched savannas of Africa, the steamy jungles of Southeast Asia, or the ancient arid landscapes of Australia. These are the realms of giant monitor lizards, a dazzling array of venomous snakes, and crocodiles that have ruled the waterways for millennia. Yet, when we turn our gaze to the Americas, a fascinating ecological puzzle emerges. Compared to these other great landmasses, North and South America have a noticeably sparser reptilian fauna. This isn't because their vast forests, deserts and wetlands are inhospitable. In fact, many habitats in the Americas today are perfectly suited for a rich diversity of reptiles. The answer to this disparity lies not in the present, but deep in the past, a story written by colossal sheets of ice, the slow drift of continents, and the fundamental nature of reptilian biology. It is a story of climate history, geography, and evolution. The single most influential factor in shaping the Americas' reptilian life is the chilling legacy of the Ice Ages. Over the last 2.5 million years, during a period known as the Pleistocene epoch, the Earth's climate has oscillated dramatically. In North America, these cold spells allowed for the growth of immense glaciers. The Laurentide ice sheet, centered over Hudson Bay, and the Cordilleran ice sheet in the west repeatedly advanced, blanketing up to a third of the continent in ice that was, in places, more than 2 kilometers thick. This wasn't a single static event, but a relentless cycle of glacial advance and retreat, occurring more than 20 times. For any life caught in the path of these advancing ice sheets, the consequences were absolute. The land was scoured, the climate rendered arctic, and survival became impossible. To understand why this was so devastating for reptiles, we must look at their fundamental physiology. Reptiles are ectotherms, commonly known as cold-blooded. This doesn't mean their blood is always cold, but rather that they rely on external sources of heat, like the sun, to regulate their body temperature. Their metabolism, their ability to move, to digest food, even to think, is directly tied to the ambient temperature. This strategy is incredibly energy efficient in warm, stable climates. But in the face of an advancing glacier, it becomes a critical vulnerability. As temperatures plummeted, their internal engines slowed to a crawl. They couldn't generate their own body heat to stay active and escape. Mammals and birds, by contrast, are endotherms. They are warm-blooded, maintaining a constant high internal body temperature by burning calories. This is metabolically expensive, requiring a constant search for food, but it grants them a crucial advantage in the cold: freedom. Insulated by fur and feathers, they could remain active, hunt, and most importantly, migrate over long distances to escape the worst of the glacial conditions. For the reptiles of North America, the only option was a slow, multi-generational retreat southward. But their pace was dictated by the climate. Many lineages simply couldn't move fast enough. Entire families of lizards, snakes, and turtles that had thrived for millions of years were extinguished, their evolutionary stories cut short by the encroaching ice. The survivors were compressed into small, isolated pockets of warmth known as refugia, areas like modern-day Florida, Texas, and Mexico, which remained ice-free. Here, in these crowded sanctuaries, they waited out the cold millennia. When the climate warmed and the great ice sheets finally began to retreat, the land was laid bare, a clean slate ready for recolonization. The more mobile and adaptable mammals and birds surged back north, quickly reclaiming their former territories. But for the reptiles, the return journey was a far slower, more tentative affair. Their dispersal is a gradual generation-by-generation process, limited by their thermal needs. Even today, more than 10,000 years after the last major glacial retreat, many reptile species are still slowly expanding their ranges northward. The ecological vacuum left by the ice has never been fully refilled. This repeated cycle of extinction and slow recolonization acted as a great filter, dramatically reducing the overall diversity of reptiles in North America. Geography also played a profound role. For tens of millions of years, the story of the Americas was one of isolation. After the breakup of the supercontinent Gondwana, South America became a giant island continent, its fauna evolving in splendid isolation. North America, too, was largely cut off from the great landmass of Eurasia. Crucially, North and South America were themselves separated by a wide seaway, preventing any exchange of terrestrial life. This long-term separation meant that major reptile groups that were diversifying and spreading across Africa, Asia and Australia, such as the large monitor lizards, the agamids or dragon lizards, and many families of advanced venomous snakes, simply never had the chance to reach the Americas. They were evolving on a different world. About 3 million years ago, a pivotal geological event changed everything. Volcanic activity pushed the Isthmus of Panama above the waves, forging a land bridge between the two continents for the first time in ages. This triggered one of the greatest natural history experiments ever known, the Great American Biotic Interchange. Animals poured across the new connection in both directions. Mammals from the north, like bears, cats and deer, moved south, while unique southern mammals like giant ground sloths, armadillos and opossums moved north. But while mammals exchanged freely, the reptile interchange was surprisingly limited. The tropical, humid environment of the isthmus acted as a filter. It was a suitable corridor for warmth-loving species, but a barrier to those adapted to drier or cooler climates. And by this point, the major reptilian families of the Old World were still an ocean away, unable to join the Great Migration. This is not to say the Americas are devoid of spectacular reptiles. South America, which was less affected by the ice ages and boasts the vast stable warmth of the Amazon basin, is home to some true giants. Here we find the anaconda, the world's heaviest snake, a master of aquatic ambush. We find the powerful caimans, cousins to alligators and crocodiles, ruling the rivers. And the trees are home to impressive iguanas and the large, intelligent tailed lizards, which fill a similar ecological niche to the monitor lizards of the Old World. Mesoamerica, the tropical land bridge itself, serves as a biodiversity hotspot, a melting pot of northern and southern lineages. Yet even here, the total number of species pales in comparison to equivalent tropical regions in Africa or Asia. The contrast with the Old World is stark. The vast, contiguous landmass of Afro-Eurasia, coupled with Australia's long, warm history, provided a much larger and more stable stage for reptilian evolution. These regions experienced less severe and less extensive glaciation, particularly in their tropical zones. This long-term climate stability allowed for millions of uninterrupted years of diversification. It created the perfect conditions for evolutionary arms races between predators and prey, leading to an incredible variety of forms. It's why Australia is the global centre for venomous elapid snakes and large monitor lizards, the goannas. It's why Africa is home to such a diversity of chameleons, vipers and crocodiles. They simply had more time, more space and more stable conditions to flourish. A fascinating microcosm of these processes can be seen in the islands of the Caribbean. Colonized by ancestors that rafted across from the mainland, these islands became laboratories of evolution. With few predators and competitors, reptiles diversified into a host of unique endemic species. We see this in the spectacular radiation of anole lizards, with different species evolving to occupy every conceivable niche from the forest floor to the highest canopy. But this isolation also makes them incredibly vulnerable. The Caribbean is home to some of the world's most endangered reptiles, like the magnificent rock iguanas, whose populations have been decimated by habitat loss and the introduction of invasive predators like cats and mongooses. Their story is a potent reminder of how isolation can both create and endanger biodiversity. Today, a new, powerful force is reshaping the world for reptiles: humanity. Habitat destruction fragments their populations, creating islands of wilderness in a sea of agriculture and urbanization. Climate change, driven by human activity, is altering their world faster than ever before. For some, a warming world may allow them to push their ranges further north, a rapid artificial version of the post-glacial recolonization. But for many others, especially those adapted to specific mountain climates or those on low-lying islands, rising temperatures and sea levels pose an existential threat. Conservation efforts are now critical to protect the unique and precious reptilian heritage of the Americas, ensuring these survivors of ice and isolation have a future. So, the relative scarcity of reptiles in the Americas is not a sign of failure, but a testament to a unique and challenging evolutionary journey. It's a story best remembered by three key words: ice, isolation, and instability. The repeated ice ages acted as a great reset button, wiping the slate clean in the north. The long-term geographic isolation prevented the influx of major groups that flourished elsewhere. And the climatic instability of the recent geological past favored the warm-blooded and adaptable over the cold-blooded and specialized. The reptiles we see in the Americas today are the resilient few, the descendants of lineages that survived the deep freeze, crossed oceans on rafts of vegetation, or held on in ancient warm refuges. They are a living record of a deep and turbulent history, one that shaped an entire continent's fauna in a profoundly different way. If you enjoyed this exploration into our planet's deep past, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more stories from the natural world.